Alrighty. And here we are, everybody. Welcome back to TruthWire. I am Fiorella Isabel, and I am here with Matt Weinglass from The Homeless Left. Pasta is on assignment. He is not here today, but he did do an interview, which we will show at the end, with Sam Tripoli. And you can imagine what those two probably talked about. Well, we have a very full show today. We have a lot of things. Obviously, war with Iran. The United States has been pursuing this war for decades. They've tried time and time again for regime change via the human rights approach, using Mossad agents, using NATO-funded protests to talk about human rights violations, which, I mean, a lot of people eat up, obviously, especially on the left, and those people that really get lumped into this emotional type of string, and then they start buying into that. But it didn't work. It hasn't worked. And so they've continued to escalate things. And now Donald Trump has stated he is considering strikes. And not only that, there are potential strikes to neighboring countries in West Asia, including Iraq, Yemen. And these are the threats that we're hearing. We're also going to talk about the basically the very, very close relationship, unfortunately, between AI surveillance and our government backing these new technologies that are going to be used to spy on you all. And we've talked about this with Pasta every single time related to the immigration issue. And we're also going to talk about aliens, as you all know, in relation to the Epstein files. So Matt, welcome. Thank you for co-hosting with me today. How are you? And what do you think so far of everything going on?
Oh, it's wild. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on with you today, Fee. Yeah, so much happening, and we did a very long show yesterday on The Homeless Left, trying to go through a lot of this stuff. And I mean, these are the issues we've been talking about. I mean, we know you guys, TruthWire, Homeless Left, all the other people in our space that have been, trying to connect the dots on these issues. They're not separate. They're all connected. How we behave overseas, how we conduct our imperialism and military industrial complex, and the U.S. Israel war machine, how we conduct operations here at home. And we see that connection. We see the surveillance state. We understand that this stuff was in motion well before Trump even got into his second term. And we're not just saying prophecies here. We can connect the dots, anticipate that these things were all going to happen, and looking at the technology. I think that's the most important part, because that's the spyware, the Israel spyware we're talking about, Palantir, we're talking about all these systems in place. That's the key. That's what connects. That's what gets us to get away with everything. And obviously, we're not talking so much Epstein today, but that's also in the background. That's just understanding the communication factor, the money, following the money. So it's all there. It's all connected. So I appreciate the time going through these things and figuring out, so we can anticipate what's next. I think that's the other part of the story, and why we have these conversations. So good to be here today.
Well, thank you. And as you all know, guys, we really need the shares and the likes. Pasta and I are trying to raise funds to do our on the ground work, and I have a video I'm releasing today on some of the stuff going on here, and why we really do need your support for independent media and independent shows like this one, and like The Homeless Left and others, who are really talking about the stories that a lot of people aren't really touching on, especially when it comes to this AI and technocracy reality that we're facing. And I know you talk about this a lot as well, Matt. And so let's just get started between the links between the surveillance companies, the Palantirs, the OpenAI, and also, of course, the government infrastructure that is being built to spy on Americans. So let's bring up the first tweet, Jayme, if we could. So remember, we've always talked about how the immigration issue, the border issue, is going to be used to pretty much, go after everybody. That's exactly what's happening now. We had MAGA pretty much think that Donald Trump was taking on the cartels, was taking on illegals. And the reality is they're using this immigration issue to build not just physical prisons, which is another way to build another expanded prison industrial complex, this time targeting dissidents, but also a digital prison that can extend to pretty much everybody. And we are seeing that the Board of Peace with Gaza, if you haven't made that connection already, that is pretty much the example that the world will follow. It will be heavily digitalized in terms of what they're looking at making Gaza like. And that is all part of the Abraham Accords, the Abraham Shields plan. And when you look into that, it is quite scary. And I believe it was with Matt that we did an episode where we did break that down, actually. But so this is the latest news, and this is pretty much what we're talking about here. If you click on the quote tweet, Jayme, the International Cyber Digest says, breaking, researchers have uncovered secret AI surveillance projects linked to KYC provider Persona and OpenAI, ChatGPT, in other words, sending user data to the US government. And the code reference includes intelligence program codenames Project Shadow and Project Legion. The analysis of the source code revealed OpenAI's user verification systems, including biometric tracking, facial scanning, political screening, and intelligence reporting. Researchers also discovered Onyx on Persona's government server, matching ICE's 4.2 million AI surveillance tool, which, of course, the ICE app is Palantir structured, which scrapes social media and the dark web, builds digital footprints, tracks emotional sentiment, assigns risk scores across 300 plus platforms at 28 billion data points, and flags individuals for violent tendencies. None of it was hidden. It was all internet facing. And that's the thing. It's not hidden because of the fact that people don't pay attention to this stuff. It's rather techie. It's rather nerdy for a lot of people, especially people who are in the anti-imperialist sector. A lot of people on the left don't pay attention to this. It's just not their thing. And so it's become on us to talk about this stuff, because this is just expanding and expanding. Like, they talk about the list of some of Persona's customers: OpenAI, Discord, LinkedIn, DoorDash, Etsy, Brax, Coursera, Carasoft, Swan, Bitcoin, Mercury, Wealthsimple, Branch, WeTravel, Grailed, Ease, Stifle Financial Core, First Republic, Fire and Flower Holdings, and Survey Global. And you can see the actual website. If you go to that, you click on it, and you can go to the actual source that talks about this stuff. And I would suggest everybody go and take a deep dive into that. And I'll actually put the link there for you all to see in the chat, because it's something that I think everybody should look at. And there it is. Matt, what do you think of this so far? Like, what's your opinion on this? It's not surprising, I think, to us, but just like how deep and how quickly this is escalating and going, I think is my concern.
Yeah, no, and we'll go with the part you're talking about, this being totally available and accessible for the public. I mean, and that's a key part of this. The fact that they're counting on the fact that people don't take the time to look at this. They're overwhelmed by it. They think they have to be experts to even be able to read this stuff, and they're just going to kind of put it aside. It's easy to get people upset about, this tribal politics, right? So you got the left in the streets, the no king stuff. We try to have conversations with them about this. We tell them about, Palantir. We tell them about OpenAI. They don't understand the severity of this. When you talk about digital ID infrastructure, surveillance infrastructure, they say, well, they already kind of got us all connected anyway. They already can keep track of us. What's the difference? They make excuses for this. Meanwhile, they're like, we got to stop Trump. We got to stop Trump. And it's like, well, can we find a way to connect these two issues and say, listen, it's not enough just to say, hey, a lot of these billionaires gave money to Trump's campaign, let's boycott them. Understand that these people have been integrating this technology this entire way. And these, like we talk about OpenAI, we talk about Palantir, this technology is not just about putting us on a grid. This is about the algorithm of identifying behavior before we do it, putting us in these
Yes.
labels, these camps. We talk like they talk about domestic terrorism. You'll go on a list based on your behavior about what you're going to do in the future. So this is stuff like when you try to have these conversations, again, it's overwhelming. People don't want to focus on it, but they're putting it out here for the public for a reason. And I think it's because they're saying, hey, we have nothing to hide. We've been telling you guys this the whole time. It kind of puts them in the clear because there's a timestamp on it. It's right here. We all can go and click on these links right now.
Yeah, and one point you made, Matt, that I want to highlight is the fact that this is pre-crime. This is Minority Report. This is basically going to highlight and signal how likely you or I or anybody as individuals are to commit said crime, or are to be violent offenders, or are to be, attack the government. And it's going to be based on what we say, anything we say right now. And it's going to create this architecture, and it is already creating this architecture in a digital realm that assesses who you are as an individual based on your opinions, based on your political ideology, based on anything. And obviously the people in power, as we know, are psychopathic, pedophilic, insane people that a lot of people are going to oppose. And now we have an infrastructure that is being set in place, particularly and specifically because they know we will oppose them. And of course, now anything we say or do, ironically, like the Miranda rights, will be used against us. And it's not going to require any trial. It's not going to require anything except the data that these companies are giving the government. And not only that, any social media platform pretty much right now is on compromised servers. They are on compromised algorithms, and all of this data is being fed directly to the worst people in the entire world that are in Silicon Valley, that work with the Trump administration, that are Zionists, that are protecting Jeffrey Epstein's associates, that are preventing any of these people from going to jail or from ever facing justice. These are all the people that have the power. And so I think if people understood in simple terms, like, this is like Minority Report, this is headed in the direction where you're being surveilled digitally they're looking at your eyes, they're looking at your face, they're looking at all of these ways to recognize you. And I've already seen the repercussions of that. And I think we all have here. But for example, TikTok, I can't have a TikTok. Way back when I was working with RT, we were trying to do something, and they had just started taking down any video that had my face on it, even if my name wasn't on it, my phone number wasn't on it. So like, I am not allowed. I will make a TikTok just to look at videos from family members, and then in a few days it'll be taken down. And that has to be an algorithm, an AI used to recognize faces, to recognize voice, to recognize all this stuff. And we're getting into this more and more, and it's just so dangerous where we're headed. And I don't think people realize just how dystopian that is, and I can't highlight it more. The other, just further along this, Matt, and I want to hear what you think about this, specifically about Discord, Jayme, the next one. Hackers recently exposed the parts of Discord's age verification system, and we're seeing more age verification pushes all over, including Substack, by the way, by discovering that the front-end code for their partner persona was publicly accessible on the open internet. This revealed details on how facial age estimation and ID verification are integrated. Persona's exposed code compares your selfie to watch list photos using facial recognition, screens you against 14 categories of adverse media, from mentions to terrorism to espionage, and tags reports with code names from active intelligence programs consisting of public-private partnerships. I mean, I don't know, Matt, anything to add on that?
Well, yeah. So your personal story, which let's get clear on the chronological order stuff. This happened to you on TikTok like years ago, right? This was when you first were getting recognized. So again, this technology has been in place well before the Trump's first term here, or starting his second term. This age verification, this is an easy way to get people to cheer because they think it's looking like they're trying to protect kids. We saw this technology be put out publicly in Australia a few months back. We understand like, oh, we're protecting kids. We're protecting kids. No, they're identifying you, looking at your basically your social media activity. They can find you based on your face, just like you being banned from TikTok. They can recognize your face. When we look at, I just want to add on, because you mentioned earlier about these detention centers being set up and using immigration as the way to get half the country to cheer this on, as if we're being protected by this same entity that goes around and steals kids and does all this satanic stuff. We're seeing it all in the Epstein files. So understand that the same people that are pretending to protect you are using this technology to keep you in a profile, knowing your age, knowing your behavior. And these detention camps, it's not for immigration, it's for U.S. citizens. It's to be able to lock us down, take away our ability to exist in society, and then whatever they do to us at that point, who knows? But we know what they're capable of. And again, the child thing, this is the part when you're getting when they're going around taking people off the street and hauling them away, and we're seeing that right now in all of our major cities, hauling people away. If you can identify ages, who knows how many underage, how many children are being rounded up, put into the system. We know their age as well, and we know what the elites like to do to kids. So this is when we really think about the capability they have with this technology and how far they will go, it's very hard even for us, and we've been looking at this whole way. It's even hard for us to stomach the potential nefarious things they have planned. Not just for non-U.S. citizens, for U.S. citizens as well. We're all being targeted right now, and more people need to get worried and upset and loud about this.
Yeah, I agree. More people need to get loud about it, but I don't know. I think what it is just like there's a disconnect because it seems so far-fetched to some people. Yeah. And it's not something as emotionally driven as, say, like going after Zionists or something like that. But it is the same people behind this, right? We're talking about the same people. So whenever you think about stuff like this, because I found that for a lot of people that were against the empire's abuses, it was hard for them to wrap their mind around COVID, right? And all the people that were behind COVID were the same people. We're talking about Bill Gates. And remember, we all told you about Bill Gates during COVID. We all told you Bill Gates was compromised. And here we are. He's in the Epstein files. No surprise at all whatsoever. But it is these people like Bill Gates, like Alex Karp, like all of these just really psychopathic people that openly tell you how much they hate humanity, how little you mean to them, how they want to kill activists with acid. I mean, this is what they think. And then they have their meetings where they discuss how to go towards their mutual interests and their mutual goals. And then we all pretend that this is just normal stuff like that rich people do. And the thing is, the power is in their hands right now, but the reality is, there's a lot more of us. So and that is exactly why they're doing what they're doing, because they know that they're being opposed. And I just hope people pay more attention to this stuff. I mean, there is going to be more of a need to break this down very simply for people to, break down what it means to have OpenAI and Discord and all of these other platforms basically feeding data to the government, what it means to create a profile of your data. And, we've been talking about the fact that your data is pretty much the currency of the future, because based on your data alone and all of the data that you have as a person, as a human being, as a citizen of X country, they can create programs to promote or manufacture consent for a lot of things. and they can control further what you do, how much food you buy, where you go, your movement. It's coming to that point. And the last thing I want to say about this that I didn't put in here is how our this is very obvious. Our technology in our homes, whether it's your computer, your phone, is already spying on you. And beyond that, a lot of people are getting carried away with tech, like with their TVs being so smart. They're capturing all of the things you say. You have to know how to turn those off. With your refrigerators, my aunt has a refrigerator that has like a computer inside it. And they don't even use it. They use the fridge for a fridge, but you don't need a freaking computer inside your fridge. And that thing is like taking in all of the data, all the conversations you're having in the kitchen, all the conversations, all the things you're talking about, all that data is going somewhere. It's not just going to stay in a cloud. Like, it's being used. It's money. It's power. And we need to think about our data as a part of us and as a mechanism that's used to control us. So if we are able to frame it that way, I think, and understand that that's what it is, and understand that it'll be used to control the very essence of who we are. And the idea of freedom is going to change for a lot of people. What does it mean to be free, to move like from here to there? And the cars we drive, like the Teslas and all these other cars that basically have computers inside them now, that is another way to look at things. And, we're facing a gigantic monster when it comes to tech. So there's a lot more coming.
Fia, I want to add one more thing, because we talk a lot about our, what happens to us when we speak out. We talk about the punishment factor, right? The getting on domestic terrorist list, getting, wiped off of social media. There's this punishment element. We talk about that a lot. The part we don't, and I'm glad you brought up COVID, because people aren't going to look at the Bill Gates stuff if they've already convinced themselves that they want to help us. They're here to provide for us. They care about our safety. They care about our well-being. Obviously not. Obviously, we can see that it's clear as day. The psychopaths telling us, people like Bill Gates telling us it's for our own good, when it's really for his own good, and for it works against us. We know this, but there's another factor in place. And during COVID, we have to remember they gave out cheeseburgers and fries. Okay. So this is another element of reward. So we have to figure out new ways we can communicate with people and not let them get trapped into the reward system. There will be a reward system in place for participating in society if you do everything right. Go back and check out this Netflix show. You guys remember the Black Mirror? There was a Black Mirror episode from a few seasons back with Bryce Dallas Howard, who it's a social media a grading episode where she's trying to work her way up the echelon to be allowed to be at this high-end elite wedding with an old high school friend. She wants to impress people, but she keeps messing up because if you look at people the wrong way, they can score you down. They can give you a thumbs down. And if you keep losing points, you can't do things like rent a car at the airport, and you get X'd out. But if you smile and nod and say yes to everything, you get points. And people are going around in this episode smiling and laughing at everything, because if you show any problem with anyone, they can low grade you. This is an episode we need to look at, because people sign on for that because they want to be the privileges of society. They want those bonuses. They want those gifts. Let's figure out a way we can tell people, warn people about this. Do not accept it, and do not accept the cheeseburger and fries when they're trying to give you a jab to get back to normal. We know that that's a mechanism that's not real. That is fake, and we need to educate people about that part of this.
Absolutely. I've always loved Black Mirror for years, since the beginning it came out, and I'm into the dystopian stuff. Like, I probably watch like 95% of like dystopian science fiction stuff, and it's entertaining, but it's also been highly almost like a predictive future that we have, because Hollywood always finds ways of exposing, what the plans are and what they plan on doing. And Minority Report and a few others have been pretty telling of where we're going. And it's, it's not just the classics like 1984 or Brave New World or all of that. It's like what Matt said. And it becomes more apparent the more you look at a credit score, right? A simple credit score. You can't do anything if you have a terrible credit score. But think about that as expanded times like 1,000, when now it's your entire essence, because now they don't just have your purchases, they have pretty much every other detail about you. And so that profile that they used to have is now expanded into a digital copy of you. And that digital copy of you will eventually become far more important than the real human copy of you. And that is as dystopian as it gets. So if you haven't seen Black Mirror or those episodes, I would recommend it, just because it's pretty much what's coming. And it's been so on point, down to the episode where they had the dead relatives go up in a cloud, and pretty much you can relive your memories, talk to your mother every day, even if she's passed, because they have a digital creation of them. That's already happening.
Yes.
So we're not far off here. Like, that's already a thing that people can do now. And I just find it so revolting and scary. But anyway, as if this war that is a war pretty much on you and I, right? It's a war on the people, and it's happening pretty much in the majority of world countries you can think of. No country that is powerful is safe from this. We are leading very much with it, but we're not. I would even say we're not as far there with the tech as China is.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have more nefarious actors in terms of the Epstein files, and in terms of the people in the West, we're leading that depravity there. But the tech is pretty much everywhere, and it's become a competition to really get the most out of this tech. And that's a war that I think humanity is facing in terms of our existence. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Apart from that war in the digital sphere, there's also a lot of things happening geopolitically. And that takes us to our next topic, which is Iran. So there's been talk about the war with Iran for a long time now, but specifically in the last few months, everybody's been trying to figure out when the U.S. was going to strike Iran. A few weeks back, they said it was going to be the weekend. Now they're saying it's going to be the weekend again. We really have no idea, because it does seem like there's been attempts at predicting this. There's been so-called diplomatic attempts from the United States, but it is, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of people from the region, that the United States is not really interested in any sort of truce with Iran, particularly because Israel needs Iran to fall in order to continue its expansion into the region, in order to pretty much fulfill its expansionism, to fulfill the desires that Israel has, not just the Abraham Accords, but in general, it's the era of Pax Judaica, where we're seeing the takeover of Zionism. And it's not, just in the United States or anything like that, but we are offering a very, very huge advantage to Israel with weapons, with billions of dollars, with cover, both in media and PR wise. And obviously the Epstein files has revealed the power that lies in these factions that are Mossad affiliated. And people can argue and say, oh, but it's not 100%. No, it's pretty, there's a lot of evidence showing the ties between Epstein and Mossad, not just Ghislaine Maxwell, but even beyond that. So we're seeing this, right? This Epstein stuff and the surveillance stuff in the background of this potential war with Iran. And the Cradle has released a couple articles talking about this. And Iran has pretty much warned the UN that if there's an attack, right, against them, all US bases will become legitimate targets. And all of the Western media has been saying that Washington can attack Iran as soon as the weekend. And that is if Iran fails to basically stop their nuclear program, right? That's one of the main things that the United States wants, that they need to stop their nuclear program. They don't say anything about Israel because we know Israel and the United States have different rules. And so they cite here that Iran has repeatedly stated at the highest level that it neither seeks tension nor war and will not initiate any war. However, in the event that it is subjected to military aggression, Iran will respond decisively and proportionally in the exercise of its inherent right to self-defense under Article 51 of the Charter of the UN. This was said by the Iranian representative Saeed Eravani. And so he said, in those circumstances, all bases, facilities, and assets of the hostile force in the region would be legitimate targets in the context of Iran's response. The U.S. would bear full and direct responsibility for any unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences. And so, again, this has been a long time coming. Donald Trump has said that Washington might need to use the Diego Garcia base as a U.S. UK joint facility. And that's where we're at in terms of the U.S. response to Iran. And then Donald Trump had a press conference in where he basically was asked a question like, are you considering a limited military strike if Iran doesn't make a deal? And he said, yes, he is considering it. So let's hear that, and then I'll get your take on that, Matt.
You can leave now.
Press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
I can say I am considering it.
Thank you, press.
I find it weird how they're laughing, like ha 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 ha. It's just odd. But go ahead, Matt. What do you think of this so far? It kind of does seem like a repeat, or of the 12-day war. We're seeing these threats. Last time people wanted Iran to go further, and they've been they've shown restraint, very much like China and Russia have shown restraint throughout the endless attacks by the West. What do you think of this? Do you actually see something happening here? Do you see Iran possibly trying to go to the diplomatic table? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that, Iran has been in this ready to go mode because of this has been, you mentioned the 12-day war. They know what we're capable of. And so they are ready. And I believe this statement 100% that they are ready. And we believe it too. That this is why we have asked everybody to clear out as best they can, knowing that the U.S. That these places are definitely targets. That this is, make no mistake about that. So when are we going to strike? When's that happening? We've been told it could happen within hours. We know that it could be over the weekend, as we were told. But there's an element of Trump that I have to say, and I've been saying this the whole time. There's something about Trump that tells me that he's doing his actual best to stall this as long as possible. The problem is he's not in charge of this. There's too many other elements in play that are setting the pieces up that we've never seen like this before. They're talking about a casualty account right now for U.S. soldiers. They're preparing for 10,000 to be killed in this. These numbers are being projected as if they're ready, and they are taking Iran seriously. They know they're going to be striking on U.S. bases. So how long can Trump stall this out? I don't know. He's not making the call on this. That's why he keeps leaving that little window open of, well, we'll see what they do. We'll see. Maybe if they decide, this or that, maybe. But make no mistake, these stealth bombers that have been en route to Iran, they're circling around. They're ready to go. I don't think on a chessboard, we've never been this locked and loaded around Iran at any point in our lifetimes. And we know how many times throughout our lifetimes that you have Netanyahu urging, begging, pleading with us to do this. So you can feel him salivating at the mouth right now that we're this close. So what is it going to take? Is something going to happen to say, let's just fold on this? or are we past the point of no return? I think we might be past the point of no return. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point.
Yeah, I also think I have a hard time believing the U.S. is going to back off from this. I don't see how they could at this point. And I agree that Trump isn't the only one calling the shots here. We know that for a long time, Israel and elements within the U.S. Military apparatus have wanted a war with Iran. And again, in order for Israel to do what it needs to do, for the United States and its allies to do what it needs to do, Iran has to fall. Iran is a center for the axis of resistance. And that is the other thing that is happening as well, is there is a plan to attack not just Iran, but to attack its allies. So Israel, in coalition with the planned U.S. strikes, also plans unprecedented strikes in Lebanon and Yemen and Iraq as part of this U.S.-Iran war. So that tells you who the major players and pushers of this war are. Because if Israel is planning this, then this is like a two-pronged thing. And if you guys recall, weeks ago, before there was a release of ISIS and of just a lot of these radical jihadist groups in Iraq, and that was in an effort to distract the resistance, to try to get them kind of looking at other fronts in order to distract them from the incoming attacks on Tehran. And we're seeing that happen as well in Lebanon. We're seeing it, of course, Syria is now gone, so they can use Syria, and they are using Syria. And this is, again, once an attack directed at Iran, an attack directed to weaken the resistance, the new Iraqi leadership is actually pro-resistance. And that is another reason why this is the plan. So the Israeli army is preparing to carry out a massive and unprecedented strike against Iran-backed resistance movements. And they still exist pretty much in Iraq and Lebanon. And with Hezbollah, you have Ansarullah in Yemen. And these Israeli sources said that Israel was preparing for these strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon, Ansarullah in Yemen, and the resistance factions in Iraq. So this is not going to just be a tiny thing when it happens, because Israel's going to weaponize this opportunity to pretty much target the entire axis of resistance. And when I talk about the axis of resistance, I'm talking about people that will fight no matter what, because their ideological belief is to actually fight and protect their sovereignty, no matter how unpragmatic it is. They're not just gonna, go over well. The thing is, I think that the question here is how Iran is going to act, because Iran did show restraint before. However, numerous times Iran has said, this is different because we've learned from our mistakes. And this is something you pointed out before, Matt, that back then they were able to see what this was going to look like. And now I think we are trying to see more of a pushback. Now, we do know that in Iran, there exists the more liberal faction that is the president, right? The president is a lot more leaning towards some sort of diplomatic truce, some sort of just, reined in type of reaction. But Imam Khomeini does not lean towards that, and neither does the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and neither do a lot of the resistance factions that are there standing with Iran as well, because they know the significance of Iran. So I do think we're going to see more from Iran, and I think a lot of people are begging Iran to not hold back. But this isn't a game, this is a war. This is possible, a dangerous war. A lot of deaths, a lot of innocent people stand in front of this. And Israel and the United States never hesitate to take out innocents in order to get their objectives. And the problem is the other side Iran and the other axis, they do hesitate. It's not a problem in the sense of it's actually a good thing, but in the sense of playing chicken, the United States usually knows that they are the ones that can pull the trigger and are willing to do this. So at every turn, you're going to see attempts for diplomacy coming from a genuine place from Iran, that you're not actually seeing from the United States. There's not a genuine desire, I think, from most of them. Now, I do want to talk about Russia's role in this because we know the Strait of Hormuz is extremely important for both Russia and China. Okay. For the economy, the global economy as a whole. If this war happens, there will be some disruption. Now, in Russia, just like in Iran and in many other countries, there's different factions, and there's this question of what Russia's going to do, because a lot of people have been talking about, and if you've seen any interviews with Helmer, who I really want to talk to soon, John Helmer, he's talked about like various factions, and he's talked about Lavrov, and it does seem like Lavrov, in reference to the Ukraine war and in reference to other things, is not entirely loving the way that Russia is handling, the Kremlin is handling a lot of the foreign policy aspects, because there is like an attempt, and I've talked about this before, with Kirill Dmitriev, who is, a U.S. educated businessman, to resolve the Ukraine issue with some sort of diplomatic truce between Russia and the United States. There is the other end of the spectrum that says, what are you doing? The United States is not really serious about this. They're not actually going to give you a fair treatment. And so there's like this divide within Russia now coming from Russians themselves. And so this person writes, the Pescovite faction in Moscow is opposed to Russia joining in defense of Iran. If the U.S. attacks, Dmitry Peskov threatens to hit the kill switch on Russian air defense systems. We call on our Iranian friends to exercise restraint. Now, we don't know that it is Dmitry Peskov, because Dmitry Peskov is simply the Kremlin spokesperson. He speaks for Putin because he's the guy that's authorized to do so. So, but this is referencing the statement from Peskov coming from the Kremlin on TASS, the Russian news agency. And Dmitry Peskov stated that Russia continues to develop relations with Iran, and in doing so, we call on both Iranian friends and all parties in the region to exercise restraint, caution, and to prioritize political and diplomatic means in resolving various issues. This is very just straight up like Kremlin type of stuff. Like, they're going to say this. This is nothing that I can say indicates that this is Peskov himself. Like, it's just the Kremlin. This is what they are going to say. But just one last thing I want to say. Russia has a relationship with Iran, but that relationship does not have a mutual defense pact like they have with North Korea. And Russia also has a relationship with Israel. And there is this constant back and forth where they have seemed to be a mediator between the United States and Israel and Iran. So at every turn, we have seen that. There has to be a decision made, though, if there is a strike, and there is an economic factor that will impact Russia. So I think a lot of people are wondering where Russia's going to go. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they seem to be conflicted. I think you're right. It's coming from the Kremlin, but ultimately, even just the idea that you have to, caution Iran to use restraint, to me, that seems like that they've demonstrated the restraint. I mean, so they're not the ones you need to be given advice to right now. But I understand, like they're kind of stuck in this situation because they have that relationship with Israel, like you mentioned. But to see the chessboard set up right now, you gotta lean towards the fact that Russia will ultimately be available to support Iran in this. They will have to lean that direction. So, but I understand we're going to get these disagreements. We're going to get this kind of little divide coming from the Kremlin here. And a lot of it might just be just to present that they're not necessarily aligned at the hip with Iran. But I think a lot of the idea that you have China and Russia demonstrating that they have the capability, demonstrating they have the backing, a lot of that is just to show U.S. and Israel that that Iran's not standing alone. And we talk about these alliances that need to at least present a certain way. We talk about it in Latin America as well. How can you present if you end up on your own and isolated? That's when we take full advantage and we take you out, like Gaddafi. Like we take you out if you don't at least demonstrate an alignment. So a lot of it could just be for presentation purposes to kind of keep them in this neutral place. But I do think at the end of the day, you're going to have that backing from Russia. You have to, because when you look at the full scope and you look at the Epstein file drop and you look at a lot of what people are saying outside of the West, is they're saying this is a battle against an entire insane pedophile, child sex trafficking, satanic regime. That's what they're calling the West. And they're all kind of saying that. So underneath all of this strategy and all this chessboard alignment, you have that that kind of notion out there that it's really the people versus the imperialist U.S. Israel war machine, which is well beyond the imperialism at this point. When you're talking about the satanic cult behavior, which we can see as clear as day. And I want to just throw this out because a lot of people don't even know this in the West because they completely blackballed this part of it. But Iran, another issue with that Israel and the U.S. has with Iran is that the people are openly protesting against the satanic cults right now. They're out in the street with the Baal statues, burning them. They have the 666 on the heads with the Israeli flag, and they're saying down with this type of behavior, down with these psychopath pedophile monsters. And they're saying that, and we can't even report on that here, because what would that tell the people in the West? What would that tell us if we said, hey, look what they're doing in Iran? Look at how dare they get out there and be so anti-Semitic with their Baal statue burning. So they don't even tell us that part. But I think that that's the underlining factor that's going to take people that in Russia, China, other parts of the world, people that aren't they're not implicated in the files. By the way, isn't that funny? The people that are not implicated in the files are the people that we were told were our enemies our entire lives. At the end of the day, I think they're going to have each other's backs against this insanity that we're experiencing in real time and seeing all this in the Epstein file drop.
Yeah, I hope, Matt. I do see in Russia like a internal fight. I see people that are on board with you, that really are against everything that the Epstein files has shown. But I also see people that think that Trump is not a part of it, or that think it's just the Democrats, or think that it's just, and this satanic group is just the Democrats, and they've aligned themselves with the Trump administration, and think like that there is a way to like have this connection. And there's also the question of Russia's relationship with Israel, and how there's a lot of Russians in Israel, and that they believe in the existence of Israel. They believe that Israel has a right to exist. They believe in a two-state solution. So those are the realities that are, where Russia exists. It's like that reality, and then the other side that really doesn't like Zionist, that tried getting rid of the Zionist influence. And so there is like this internal tug of war within Russia. And I see that being displayed right now in the statements coming from the military and Lavrov versus the statements coming from the Kremlin and Dmitriev, who is Putin's top advisor. And that's one of the things where I think it will determine. You would think that Russia would support Iran, and they have in some ways, but in terms of a full-on military support of any kind, I don't see that happening, just because that would up the ante a lot. And China themselves, they have given some support, and I'll talk a little bit about this. But I think this is again a part where Russia is trying its best to play diplomatic, neutral efforts to tone this down, but I don't think that decision is unanimous. I think there are people that are like, no, Israel has to be stopped, that Israel must be stopped. And a lot of the people that think that way are actually the population. A lot of people who are very patriotic and see where this is going and what Israel and the West are planning on doing, and that they could be next, right? That they are next, in fact, that this is about, that won't stop with Iran, that it will affect them economically and financially. So there is, I think, this internal war right now. And another thing that points to that from the same account is the Cuba issue, right? A lot of people, even in the chat right now, are saying, Russia didn't back Venezuela or Cuba. Well, yeah, and Russia and Venezuela and Cuba are far from the sphere of influence of Russia, but Iran is not. And Iran presents a different player. They're more powerful. They affect the economy at a much higher level in terms of so many things, not just economically, but their resources. They also have a military that is more than capable of defending itself. So Iran is not Venezuela, it is not Cuba. The reactions to Iran from China and Russia will be different because they are affecting them, unfortunately. But that is a very pragmatic approach. It's not an ideological approach. And we're seeing that, right? Because if it was ideological, of course, you would form some sort of bloc and defend Cuba and Venezuela, but that didn't happen. And one of the things that this John Helmer points out in his, if you click on the tweet, there's also an article there. He points out basically that they're going to back Rubio's negotiations with Raul Castro rather than the current president, Miguel Diaz-Canel. And he goes on and talks about how this is not reminiscent of something that is the same ideology that the Soviet Union had. That, while Russia does stand with Cuba, and Putin did meet with one of the Cuban ministers right now and really signaled, yeah, we stand with you. But what does that mean? How are they going to act in terms of what Trump is doing, what the United States is trying to do to go after Cuba? I haven't seen a delivery of oil yet from Russia.
Yeah.
And, again, the United States is pretty much has all of these countries with a gun to their head saying, we're going to capture your ships. Like, you can't do this. You can't do that. I would like to see a bloc that says, no, we can. You can't control what we do. I would like to see more of that attitude, and I'm not seeing it. And that is one of the things that I think is also causing tension, right? Because I do think that there are factions that are saying we need to do something to help Cuba. We need to show that, we're not just going to comply, because then what happens when we're on the chopping block next, And so there has been a comparison to, is this more, this is not really Khrushchev. This is not that type of policy. And so that's one of the things that John Helmer talks about in his article. And he's lived in Russia for a long time, and he has his opinions about Russia. But I think it's worthwhile that we talk about that again, like just like in the United States, Russia is not a monolith, right? We have different factions and different opinions and different desires. Meanwhile, you have Kirill Dmitriev, who is talking about the news. There was fake news that said that Russia offered the U.S. $12 trillion in deals in exchange for lifting sanctions. This was reported by The Economist, and he's saying it's fake. He said the U.S. will eventually lift sanctions because sanctions on Russia cost U.S. businesses $300 billion. Lifting sanctions on Russia is in the U.S. interest. The portfolio of potential U.S.-Russia projects is over $14 trillion. I wanted to show this tweet because I want to get you guys to understand his point of view is extremely economy based, right? He's very much a businessman. He's trying to get these deals done. He's trying to get the Russian economy to go up. The Russian economy is not doing so hot right now in terms of inflation, in terms of the price of goods has gone up, the price of rent, the price of a lot of things. And so that is very important for Russia right now to try to resolve the issue in order to get the economy up. And then the other thing that Dmitriev, of course, has been a huge part of is the talks that are happening between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. And a lot of people have been saying, this is not going anywhere. This is this, but there, like I said, there is like this push where they want to resolve it, and then there are people that are like, no, we're not going to take anything they give us. So let's just hear what Caroline says, and then we'll, Matt, I'll get your reaction to this.
The president and his team have committed a tremendous amount of time and energy in bringing this war that is very far away from the United States of America, but nevertheless, this is a president of peace. And so he's committed a tremendous amount of time and energy to bringing this war to an end. Just yesterday, there was another round of trilateral talks between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. There was meaningful progress made in both parties. Both sides agreed to update their respective leaders and to continue to work towards a peace deal together. So there will be another round of talks in the future. But I think the president views this entire situation as very unfair, not just for Russians and Ukrainians who have lost their lives, but also for the American people and the American taxpayer who were footing the bill for this war effort before President Trump put a stop to it. And I would just remind everyone around the world that the United States is still selling weapons to NATO that are then being sent to Ukraine in their defense of their freedom in their borders. The president.
So in the same sentence, she's talking about how this war is bad and like how Americans, taxpayers, are footing the bill, but she's also admitting that the United States is still sending weapons to NATO for Ukraine to protect itself. So this is why people are like, what exactly is happening, right? Like,
yeah, no, that's it. In the exact same sentence, she's saying the two kind of contradicting things. But I think that the war in Ukraine, that Trump's been contradictory about, that's like the one that has been kind of all over the place this last year, as far as even trying to. And by the way, she started that sentence with the peace president. It's like, are you kidding me at this point? But how are we going to get to the end of the Ukraine war if this attitude it just persists, this attitude of the tariffs and we're going to stick it to, I think that Trump as a businessman, he is absolutely just small potatoes compared to when Putin comes to the table. You mentioned earlier about Russia's ability to play things in a pragmatic way as opposed to ideologically, and I think that's the problem with Trump. He's trying to be the businessman at the same time. Everything that we do, all of our policy, all of our foreign policy is all based on emotion. It's all based on we got to stop them, we got to stop this, we got to do impulsive tariffs, we got to bait and switch different deals, we got to say one thing, do another. Putin is the one that's been composed this whole time, and I think at this point, if they're saying that we're getting somewhere, I'm just not going to hold my breath anymore. How many times do we have to say that we're this close to a deal? I don't know. At this point, I see that we're just basically at this stalemate at this point. Maybe Putin is just holding out until Trump just kind of self-implodes on himself. And our relationship with NATO, I think that's the thing we really need to look at. How can Caroline Levitt say that we're still giving weapons through NATO as if NATO has this power over us that we're not part of? But maybe that's the relationship we're waiting to see, if there's some sort of moment that we can kind of detach from that. That would be one silver lining from this entire experience. If we can get some sort of detachment from NATO out of this entire debacle in Ukraine, that would be some sort of, I guess I would say, silver lining.
Well, the reality is it's not convenient for the United States, for NATO and Russia to have a good relationship. Let's just look at Germany, for instance, right? So it's actually, for them, they're looking at it like this as well. And there's a lot of like blame on NATO, but NATO isn't the majority of the funding for Ukraine, right? I mean, NATO, they have awful politicians, yes, and NATO has been used in this proxy war. But the reality is, as you said, the United States holds a lot of the decision making there, if not all of it. So to just say, NATO this and that, like, let's be real, like the moment, there is a meeting, it's between the United States and Russia and Ukraine as a sidebar, because we know who's really making the decisions. And so I think that there are there's a desire from Putin and from, certain elements in the Kremlin to end this war, to look at this as an economic opportunity to build a bridge with the United States. But there are elements within Russia that are saying no, because they're not going to be fair to you. They're going to give you another Minsk 8. They're going to continue this game over and over again, and you can't do that. And there's a patriotism within elements in the military that are very much in line with that thought. And there's an understanding as well from others that are saying, what are you doing? Why are you even having these dumb meetings with Trump? He's not serious. They're not serious. They're still giving money to NATO. They're still giving money for Ukraine. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not, real. And so which one will win out of this? Who's going to ultimately make the decision? I think it's yes, Putin, but also Putin has, there are other elements that influence Putin as well. So it will be left to determine. What is true is that Donald Trump wants this war to end because he wants to signal himself, as Levitt said, as the peace president. He's not. And if he starts another war with Iran, how's that going to complicate things? How's that going to look? So they're overextending themselves. And we've talked about this. They've long overextended themselves. This is now, they have several things in the Americas going on. They have Iran, they have Ukraine, and they're also, of course, going after China, competing with China, very much so. And that also is related to what's going on in Latin America. And so I think there has to be a resolution to something before we really get deep into Iran. And I don't know if they're going to do that, because now the cutoff is there. I mean, the ships have sailed literally, and we're about to start a war with Iran. So something's got to give, because there is like this tendency right now that we're seeing for the U.S. to normalize relations with certain sectors. We're seeing that happen with Venezuela. We're seeing that attempt go throughout the region. But is it an actual fair type of dignified relationship? Absolutely not. The United States never looks for win-wins. They look for I win, you lose. And that's how we do foreign policy. So anybody that does anything with them should be very well aware that this is how they conduct business, and they are not to be trusted. So yeah, it's pretty dire.
I had a question about the Board of Peace offer that we heard Putin give. Do we have anything coming from that? The exchange was, if you guys remember, the $1 billion. He said, if we can end this deal, or if we can just make this deal for Ukraine, end this thing, I will offer $1 billion to the Board of Peace. Was that a real offer? Is that something that's also on the table right now? I haven't seen anything transpire from that since that was put on the table back during Davos. So I don't know if you've heard anything back about that, or if that was just a talking point on Putin's end that didn't really have any substance.
Yeah, it seems like that was actually Maria Zaharova came out, I believe, and said that they didn't make a decision on the Board of Peace yet, that they're not involved yet. And Donald Trump has said that he would like China and Russia to be involved, but they're not involved yet. So that was said by Zaharova, I think, a few days ago, where she said we're still looking at everything in regard to the Board of Peace. So they're not
using that as leverage, sure, like the leverage of let's end this proxy war, let's get this done, and then we can talk about Board of Peace. Was that something? Is that an actual leverage piece that is being in motion right now still since the Davos?
They haven't said, but looking at it that way, I think you're right. Like, it could potentially be something. I mean, Russia is very much like this. They will try to get something out of giving something. They're not done. They're going to say, okay, well, if you want to do this, let's talk about this. It's not like ideologically we stand against this. Kind of like Mexico's president kind of signaled, Palestine isn't at the table, so we're not, we're not going to do it this way. But for Russia, I think they're more, okay, well, can we discuss Ukraine first? Like, what exactly are we going to get about this? What exactly is our input in this then? What's the purpose? And I think that's why Saharba said she gave like a very general vague statement. Like, we're still looking at all elements on this. They haven't said anything about that. And I honestly think it's better for them PR wise to not join it, because it is a farce. And I think, the majority of people see that it is a farce. So it looked, when that news came out about, Putin offering all this money, and a lot of people shared it, and it wasn't even verified. And then it was taken as being like, oh, they're offering Palestine this money. None of that was true. It was just online stuff. And, I think this kind of signals that they're seeing through it. Like, they're seeing what it is, and they're like, okay, well, we're also going to like negotiate like on our end. And this is why we haven't heard anything from it. The other thing is, going along with that, there's been like a lot of fake news about, Russia or China offering stuff in Iran. And this is from Ehsan Safarinejad, and he's from Iran, and he's very well connected in Iran. And he's talking about there's the propaganda on so-called alternative media on YouTube about the upcoming war in Iran and the help that Russia and China are providing Iran is absurd. And I recommend everybody go read this thread, because he talks about the specific weapons that were delivered and the things that were not delivered. Both of our allies are helping, but it's nowhere near the claims that are made on X or YouTube. And so he talks about his interview with Vanessa. He talked a lot about the specifics on that, the specific transfer of the weapons. And I, because of sake of time, I don't want to go through it all, but I will say, like, in terms of what China supplied and didn't supply, he specifically talks about all of that. So I recommend, this is a source from Iran, that you go to him and look at a lot of the stuff that he's saying, because he is well connected in Iran and directly is talking about a lot of the things that are actually happening, especially now that we're seeing the potential for war and what is happening, what is true, what isn't. It's really good to have sources that are actually there and that are actually on the ground and stuff. So I highly recommend that account for that. So yeah. And Matt, the last thing I have to talk about this, because I think you very well know that this is something that happens every single time there's a war, or every single time there's something like the Epstein files, right? The aliens are coming. The aliens are coming for us. The aliens are real. Multiple presidents have admitted that extraterrestrials are real, or have said at one point or another. And the geopolitical world is so crazy that people have just kind of looked at that and said, oh, okay, moving on. And no matter what they say about aliens anymore, people just look at it and they're like, okay, that's nice. Let's talk about the Epstein files. And let's talk about the war that's coming up. So Donald Trump talked about how Barack Obama revealed too much, because Barack Obama in an interview talked about aliens being real. And so, which, by the way, I don't think it's coincidence that Barack Obama said that. Why? How do you all of a suddenly start talking about the discourse of aliens amidst everything that's happening right now? Suddenly Barack Obama talks about it, and then Trump has to respond to it. Come on, guys. Like, and it's all over the media. It's all over socials. Like, it's just so classic what they do. So this is what Trump said to the reporter's question. Let's hear it, Jayme.
A lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. Well, he made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, the president can declassify anything that he wants to. So if you want to make an announcement,
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens are real.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals. What else?
Like, I don't know, Matt. Like, it's a little bit like, even the joke about illegal aliens. Like, it's just so performative to me.
Oh yeah, no, this is totally performative, and they don't. It's not like even like that. Trump and Obama have to, meet on a phone call and plan this. They know where to take their cues from each other. It's pretty. They can do this this is like you can do this in your sleep at this point. You understand there's a rhythm to things. Obama knows when it's time to come in and do this, and then Trump comes back. But what is it? What is this distract? How does this work? So you get people who probably a lot of people will ignore this because they are thinking about other stuff, and that's good. But the people that are paying attention and think that this is some big moment, this is a problem. I mean, I guess this is why you have this happen, why you put this theater together, is you get people thinking, oh my God, we just found out that there might be a possibility that there are aliens. It's like we are so far beyond possibility. We are talking about technology that has been advanced. So we know this. We know that the investigation's been going on. We know what Michael Schellenberger. We know a ton of people that have done the extensive research on this, and we understand that the technology we're using, that we've been developing, that we've been rapidly developing, is based on our communications and relationships with extraterrestrial. It's not even so. Just even to put the question out is very. It's very misleading on purpose, right? To say, is there aliens? How far? I mean, at this point, it would be like saying, do we have technology available for AI? Does AI exist? That's what it would be like. Does AI exist or doesn't it? You're not supposed to say it. What are we talking about? It doesn't matter. We're not talking about whether something exists. We're talking about what we really should be talking about is what it's being used for. How are we using it against the people? Because that's what the question and answer that we're not going to have. And again, you said from the beginning of this is that this is another moment in time, and Obama and Trump both recognize this without having to get on a call. They know this is the time to get people either thinking about this or not thinking about this. But either way, we're not talking about the real thing we should be discussing, and that is the technology, which is really the connector to all of these topics we've been discussing today.
Yeah, exactly. The technology is absolutely the connector, and like how the manipulative nature of these people. I mean, let's just look at what Trump said, right? And this tweet by Boston Smalls says, unless these aliens are running an intergalactic pedo ring, I don't care. Release all the files. And who knows, we might not be far off from that reality, unfortunately. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. So this is Donald Trump's and a lot of the memes are hilarious, like, prosecute the Epstein pedophiles, and then there's an alien holding that up. I mean, it's kind of crazy because you're looking at all of that's happening, and I will say the majority of people, Matt, are seeing through this bullshit. They're like, all right, that's nice, but can we continue talking about the things you all don't want to talk about? Can you continue really talking about the surveillance, the Epstein files, the wars you're about to start? Can we not look at this, as a way to distract people from all of this? And I think beyond the issue of like, oh yeah, it's real or it's not, I think it's the fact that we're more than capable of using this to control people, to control narratives, to weaponize these issues. And the tech, as you stated, is the interconnection of all of this. And it's funny how he's saying he's going to release these files the same way the Epstein files have been released, because let's face it, we don't even know the extent of what we're not seeing from the Epstein files. We're seeing I think a controlled flow of information as well from that. And we're seeing that because they don't want to hold those actually responsible. So we're not going to get like the full spectrum. And the same way, we're not going to get the full spectrum on this issue regarding extraterrestrials. We're just not. Like, it's not in their interest. What is in their interest, though, is to kind of dangle carrots and dangle this and that and get people to talk about it without actually releasing the full scope of information. And that's what Trump has been very good at doing and very good at manipulating. So, I at least I am glad that people are seeing through a lot of this. And just the last thing I wanted to show is every time, right? And this meme of just like the alien and the guy looking away from Epstein towards the alien. I mean, this is where we're at right now. They try to get us distracted, but I honestly think, Matt, like for the first time, I'm not seeing people buy into this at the scope that they've been before.
Well, look, I'll say this, and this is I think we need to say something positive here, because what we have in front of us right now, Fee, what we have is access to so much information out of the files that did drop, out of the I mean, we want to talk about the alien stuff. We have access to so much to look at and to try and wrap our heads around the stuff they did allow us to see. I think they're counting on it either being too much for people to handle, which we've seen. We've seen people being overly stimulated, just going to a place of complete numbness because of the stuff that is right in front of us. We can see how they coordinate. We can see how they plot. We can see the mechanism in place for the world's elite to coordinate on every one of these attacks against humanity, whether it was COVID or any of the wars or any of this the child sex trafficking and the Satan, the eating children. I mean, it's all there. So what are we not seeing? I'm not as concerned about that right now. You nailed it. They're not going to show us we're not going to see the actual videos of the blackmail tapes. We're not going to see the actual crimes being committed. We will never see those. But we don't need to see those to understand the mechanism in place and the coordinated efforts to attack humanity over and over and over again, and the upward transfer of wealth and the rigging of our banking system and the propaganda machine that's in place in our education and our entertainment and in all of our politics and all the churches. We can see it. It's all there. And I'll just throw the alien stuff in too. Guys, you can do your own research. You can look at what they've been doing in Antarctica this entire way. We can look at the technology that it's really hard to wrap our heads around, but it's there. The idea of like, oh, we can't communicate across the galaxy. Oh, yes, we can. It's called bending time and space. We have the technology. The stuff is that we have the ability to do is absolutely insane, but it is there. It is available. We don't have to sit here and go, well, they'll never show us. They don't have to. They've shown us enough. We just need to do a little more work on our part of connecting the dots. And I appreciate there are enough people that are connecting the dots. We're not just sitting around saying, woe is me. Oh, well, what can we do? We can do something. We can do our own work. We can connect the dots on our own, and we can be loud about this and keep having conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I think you don't need a smoking gun to know what's happened with Epstein. You don't need a smoking gun to know what these people are doing. We're never going to get that smoking gun. It's the same with elections. We're not going to get the smoking gun that they're rigging elections. They're never going to give you up their power, their knowledge willingly. You just have to make those connections yourself with enough evidence. Like it's like finding a body. Like sometimes you can't find a body, but you have every other element that's there to make the connection, to know that this is a crime that was committed. And that's essentially what we have to do as people to figure it out. We're not going to get the smoking gun on COVID and the vaccines, but there's plenty of evidence to show everything else related to that. So thanks so much, Matt, for discussing all this stuff with me. We do have one more interview with Sam Tripoli and Pasta, and we're going to watch it shortly, but I do want to get everyone to highlight our fundraiser. We still have a GoFundMe for our on-the-ground work. Right now, I'm in Peru, and there's an election coming up. They've had 10 presidents in 10 years. Things are crazy here. Argentina as well. There's a lot of protests against Milei's repressive reforms when it comes to these labor reforms. There's elections in Colombia coming up, elections in Brazil. A lot of this has to do with the technocratic digital age and with the minerals for this fourth industrial revolution, lithium, copper, all of these gold, silver, all of these mining companies that are in Latin America are extremely important, specifically in the lithium triangle and South America. So a lot of this is actually very much connected to that geopolitical world. And so we want to do a lot more investigative work here. So if you can please donate to us. We've had a few donations. Jayme, are there any new ones that we haven't read? if you can put them up real quick, and I'll read them. We have Carl Evans with $25. Thank you, Carl Evans. He's been a long-time viewer of the show. And again, guys, if you can't donate, just share, because that definitely helps us. Anonymous had said, I've been following the Convo Couch and the Stupid Pizza Wars. Except for that, keep up the good work. The Pizza Wars. So that's with Kit Cabello from Hard Lens Media. And I have to say, Moscow pizza, Peruvian pizza, what else? Where else? Mexican pizza is better than Chicago pizza. So we can go and have that war with Kit. Well, I'm sure he'll respond well to that. And yeah, y'all. Thanks so much for everything. Hugh Durkin with $25. Again, if you can't donate, just share. I know that times are tough right now everywhere in the world. And we really just want to hyper focus on our work without having to do any other distractions. So, and this helps everybody. It helps us have a team. It helps us, everybody that we work with be able to contribute. So if you can just share, that's great. It's good enough. And election integrity, this is from Anonymous, is the most important part of any democracy. I can hardly afford this to value your commitment. I think we read this one last time. So much, fam. Thank you so much, Anonymous, for that. We truly appreciate it. And Matt, Eric Munn, thank you with the $5. One of the best independent podcasts. Love you too. Always right on point. Thank you for your show. And thank you for watching us. We really appreciate all of you. And Daniela donated 2 days ago as well. Daniela, thank you so much for your support. I see you all the time on X and all the work that you do in trying to expose these people in spite of, some circumstances that you're enduring in the UK. So thank you so much. And that's what I love about us. We're very close to our audience. Our audience is extremely intelligent. And Matt, I think you can, empathize with that, with having a very smart audience that is very, very aware of everything. So thank you for coming on, Matt. And thank you. Let me know what's going on with you. What's next for you? What are you doing?
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. And great job with the campaign, by the way. And it is about the audience. It's about the people that have been there for you guys the whole time. And we're finding that out too on the homeless left. And we couldn't be happier with be surrounded but with just like-minded people. And you guys set such a great example for us. So yeah, congrats on getting that going. We will continue to share it out as well from our end. And homeless left, we're on every Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. We kind of go all through the afternoon and try and get to as much as we can. Tuesdays, Thursdays, it's on Rumble, but we have our new channel on YouTube, which has been doing pretty well. We've only had the new one up a year. The last one got terminated by Google. They said we weren't allowed to have conversations. So we started a new one. We didn't care. And if they're going to do it again to our new channel, we'll just start a new one because we never run out of names. So the channel now on YouTube, it's called THL Presents. You guys should go check it out. We've only had that one up a year, and we just hit 5,000 this last couple of days. So I'm really excited about that. It's been moving and it's been shaking, and we've had 0 warnings so far from Google. So I think we're in the clear for now. But we appreciate you guys, and yeah, thanks, Fee, and we'll keep it going.
Yeah, that's right, Jayme. Moscow pizza doesn't have the chemicals and poison. The bread is different. No glyphosate. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to Jayme on the 1s and 2s, and everybody, all of our mods. Gabriel Freedom, thank you so much. Gabrielle. And yeah, that's it, guys. We'll see you on Monday. Pasta will be back, and we'll be tackling probably more Epstein stuff. So let's meet then. Bye, y'all. Have a nice weekend.
Well, stick around. We have an interview.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot. We have the interview, so don't go anywhere. This is going to be an interesting one with Pasta and Sam Tripoli.
Okay, we are live. I'm here with Sam Tripoli. I don't even know what to describe him as. He went away. He's going to come back. There he is. He's a comedian, of course. I say he's an activist of sorts. I don't know what he's being an activist for, but if you read his tweets, he's got a lot to say. Political commentator, whatever you want to describe him. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here, Pasta. I love you, buddy. And I'm glad I had some time to jump on a show with you. So thanks for having me.
I really do appreciate you coming on a pinch. Let's get right to it. So we're about a year into Trump's presidency. Give him a grade his first year out. He got the State of the Union coming up on Tuesday. I suspect he's holding off on bombing Iran until after the State of the Union. Give him a grade, Sam Tripoli.
D minus.
D minus.
Yeah.
Yeah. What allowed him to get a passing grade?
Well, you know, we might have a little difference on a couple things. There's some cultural stuff, you know, that I just see as desires to destroy institutions and archetypes in which we see the world. But you know, obviously the Zionist shit, obviously the new thing where he's allowing chemicals to be sprayed, whether he's going to protect, you know, these companies that put harmful chemicals in their products to be shielded from lawsuits. That's pretty fucking scary. You know, obviously, you know, the vaccine stuff that RFK Jr. is working on. I always believe there's a second shoe to drop, but if we take it at face value, which is very hard to do, I like a lot of that stuff about that, taking our child's vaccines down from, well, I've heard numbers from 70 over their lifetime to 11. I like that. I wish it was none, meaning parents had the right to decide whether they put their kids into vaccines or not, whether they give their kids vaccines or not. I think parents should have say in that. So there are little things I like, you know, the BlackRock thing with the housing. I would say that's probably BlackRock telling Trump that they're not making any money and they're buying all these houses, that they're going to stop doing it. So it looks like Trump is putting his foot down. But that I like. Obviously the Epstein stuff, obviously the war shit, very much against that. I think the ICE stuff is part of a two-part plan with Biden to bring in martial law. That's my opinion. So, you know, a couple things I like. Maybe I think they're little wins for humanity. I would take that. I don't like any president, dude. So, I mean, it's very hard for me to even get past the D in that. But, you know, you're grading war criminals at this part. Yeah. So they all kind of start at F. And if there's a couple things here and there you might like, you might bump it up a tiny bit from an F to a D minus. But that's about it.
Yeah. Do you think that Trump is calling the shots, or do you think he's just more of a lackey after seeing these Epstein files released? You know, and obviously him saying that he didn't want his friends to get hurt and dragging his feet. And let's be honest over here, we didn't even get a really good chunk of what was in those Epstein files. Do you think he is calling the shots, or do you think he's just more of the puppet type of president?
Well, my opinion is if any president is calling the shots, it is him, but I don't believe they call the shots. I think it's theater. I think it's pro wrestling. You know, I think he's doing what he's told. I think they got him doing unholy shit in many different ways, whether it's business or the Epstein file stuff. So they got him. You know, I don't know if he didn't want war. That was a lip service, but all these guys are war criminals. So do I think he's calling shots? Most likely not. And do I think any president's called a shot? The only shot that any president's called is JFK getting shot in the head. That's the only one. You know, yeah. So I don't have it. Listen, I don't trust anybody. I like Ron Paul. I like things Ron Paul said. He seems to have been right in a lot of shit. But outside of that, I don't trust any of them. I don't trust Thomas Massey. Even though I like the things he's saying, I know he was a Freemason as a child. So I think they're all corrupt. I think they play a game. They say what it's like guys trying to get laid, right? Guys will say whatever they have to say to get laid. And that's why women go crazy, because they get wined and dined and they say everything that they want to, that the women want to hear just to get laid. I think that's our politicians. I think they tell us what they think we want to hear until they get elected, and they do whatever they want. And then they, right around election time again, they do the dance of courting all over. I'm going to do this, that. And then they don't do it again. So like this guy running for governor, like in Florida, like only 2 years ago he was super Zionist, and now he's not. Like, did he change his mind? Which is possible. Fishback or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
You know, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. I think I've seen a lot of people change their mind on it, and a lot of them are my Jewish friends who are starting to realize there's a difference. Or is it just lip service?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hear this out and let me know your opinion.
I'm gonna listen to you. I just gotta text somebody as I listen to you. I'm not leaving.
You text somebody as you listen to me, and I'll say what's going on. Okay. So you mentioned a lot of things that Trump had did not so well, right? That's upsetting to you. And I think when a lot of people, if they watch Sam Tripoli, they'd probably say the thing that upsets Sam the most is probably in line with a lot of people feel that, you know, he is tied too closely to Israel, that Israel pushes buttons and Trump jumps, just like any other president. He's not different than any other president, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing that scares me the most, right, and this is the part, like, you know, when we've had these talks on Union of the Unwanted, the thing that scares me most about Donald Trump is when people go, well, you know, like Charlie Robinson would say, and I'm not picking on Charlie, he's not here to defend himself, but he would say, and other people would say, at least when it comes to our children, they're not being mutilated. They're not be giving extra puberty blockers. A lot of that rhetoric has been toned down. There's no executive orders from the White House that's pushing that agenda. However, I would always say, well, yeah, he might not, you know, get puberty blockers into your children as quickly and keep their body parts on them, but he's going to get the Neuralink in there faster. What Minnesota was all about really kind of explained a lot. Now, you know, I did a lot of reporting on Minnesota. I went to Minnesota, the anti-ICE protests. I can't stand ICE. I hate ICE. You know, I think they're unconstitutional. Being able to go into a house without a judicial warrant,
I agree.
Way crazy. Having a quota on arrest and not convictions is crazy. Covering up your face without having to identify yourself.
I agree.
So many things about them. And why should we have Gestapos running around the street racially profiling?
I concur.
Just terrible, right? And I will kind of argue from that point of view that we need to love each other. We obviously, there's people out there that have different opinions about immigration than I do. I think immigration is great. I think that we caused the immigration problem by our foreign policy getting involved.
100%.
Put all that aside. What Minnesota was about, and I know you know this was about the spyware. I think it was called graphite. It was used in Gaza, right? And Donald Trump it was Biden who first brought graphite, and it was called Immigration XO. And pretty much what they're doing in Minnesota is all the ICE policemen, right? They're carrying they're looking at us, and they're facial profiling. They're taking us, data profiling, and they're putting us on a grid. They use that same type of software, spyware, in Minnesota. That's what it was really about. So when people say, "Oh, what's Donald Trump's worst sin, or what has he done worse?" I say it's his allowing of the technocrats in, and since he did it, not Joe Biden and the Democrats, because if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris had signed these deals with Peter Thiel and Palantir to all this data mining, the independents and the Republicans would have went nuts. But with Donald Trump, people are like, "Oh, well, it's immigration, yada, yada, yada." Is the fourth industrial revolution here? The Great Reset, is it here? And is that Donald Trump's worst sin?
Well, you know, what I will tell you is, just so you understand me, I'm politically atheist.
Yeah.
I don't believe in any of these people. Again, I don't believe in that. I haven't voted for either of the parties in the presidential election since Obama's first term, and I instantly knew I was fucking wrong when I did that. Instantly, almost 2 months after it, I was like, "Oh, I got duped, dude." So I would believe that Trump is a Trojan horse, and he's being used to bring in things that Biden or Obama couldn't get away with. So on that aspect, I totally agree with you. You know, one thing I'll tell you that totally lines up with what you're saying is that if you study the No Kings riot, which was funded by Kings, Walmart, and all these people, the Latino gang members of Los Angeles put out a warning or an initiative or whatever you want to call it that said that nobody on their block in their territory was allowed to go to these No Kings protests because they knew exactly what it was about. exactly what you're talking about. Palantir, getting people's faces, getting them into the data, and being able to put them on a list of agents who are people who are problems. So in that aspect, I will agree with you 100%. And again, I didn't vote for Trump, no matter what people on Facebook try to tell you. I never voted for him in the first term, didn't vote for him in the second term, won't ever vote for a Republican or a Democrat ever in my life. I don't believe in either party. Everything you hate about America was either brought to you by a Republican or a Democrat. They've been spit roasting us for hundreds of years, so I have no faith in any of them. I don't know what the answer is on how to fix it because they're judge, jury, cop, prosecutor. They're every aspect of how we would deal with it. So I think you're 100% correct. And that's kind of why he's brought in, because he was the Pied Piper for this one side. And again, we have people who we know that are loud on the internet that are towing the company line. They turn politics into team sports, and they will die on the hill of their side. And I think that's a dangerous place to be. It's very dangerous when you just start co-signing on people you don't personally know in any way, and you start defending their actions when you weren't even there. So I think it's a dangerous place to get to. So I think everything you're saying is 100% correct. I don't believe in fucking any of it. And I think they're trying to implode America from the inside. Their goal, I maybe we might disagree on some of this, but I think the goal of ICE is Joe Biden lets everybody in. Trump heavy handles bringing in ICE over the top in something that might need a scalpel. They use a sledgehammer. They got agent provocateurs shooting and killing people. That Bestie or Goody or whatever the guy's name was.
Yeah.
That
Freddie.
would guarantee you that guy was told to go in there was told to go in there and somebody out. And he does it. And it's everywhere and everybody's marching. Why tax fraud is everywhere. Why pedophilia is everywhere. They're focusing on these issues in what I believe is the hopes of, and we can talk about how powerful the Constitution actually is, but the bringing martial law, because once martial law is here, all of our rights go out the door. It's a whole part of why they did the Michigan governor fake kidnapping. Part of January 6th is to bring in this whole idea of terrorism, and what the view is constantly terrorism because they want you black American, saying to black cops, fucking business, and no one knows where they are. That's the whole point of all this, is to basically destroy any rights we have left and turn us into some totalitarian fucking regime. And it's like both sides are doing it, not just one side. Both sides. You can get mad at Trump sending ICE into places, but the left's never talking about Biden sending FBI agents to like Board of Education meetings when people are upset about what's being taught to their children and wanting to fucking intimidate them. So like, it's both sides. It's like, again, I'm not on either side. I can't, they're both working together. And it goes back to that story that guy told on a podcast where he got invited to a Tucker Carlson party, and both the right and the left were there laughing with each other. And I remember when I was a very young man, and we could say anything you want about Noam Chomsky. I think his books changed how I looked at the world. But obviously, when you're emailing fucking Epstein all the time, and you're talking about people who don't get vaccinated should be like kicked out of society, it really destroys your reputation. But I remember as a kid in college, I think it was after college actually. Bill Clinton's the first president I ever saw live in person. He was giving a speech at UNLV. And I remember later on, there was a picture of him with Trent Lott, Newt Gingrich, and Orrin Hatch, I think is that his name. Orrin and they were all taking pictures of, because Trent Lott's portrait was going up in the Library of Congress. And they were all laughing together. I remember going, why is this dude laughing with these guys that tried to get him out of office? And then I go, oh, dude, it's all fake. It's all a big giant lie. It's like they were enemies and now they're best friends. So that's how I see it. Both sides are complicit. If you think one side, you might align with some of their political views that they present to us, but at the end of the day, they're all working together.
I agree. So let's talk about this latest Epstein drops. Did we learn anything from the latest Epstein files dump? And I call it a dump because I think it was selected. We've only got like 3-4% of what they got. There's a lot of videos we haven't seen. But did we learn anything
where the
from
bad
this
shit is?
Yeah.
Well, you and I probably didn't learn anything, but I think normies woke up to a lot of stuff, and even that stuff is traumatizing to them. But it's the safe shit they put out. And as dark as you think that dump is, okay, as toxic as you think it is, the stuff they haven't, the 98%, which is crazy because they put out over half of the actual emails. So the rest of it, which is 98% of it, which is 2.5 million, whatever they're talking about, is the really dark shit. And that's the stuff they don't want you to see. Is there a lot of bullshit in these things? Yeah. But that's the same thing. It's another version of Project Trust, dude, which is what Q was about corralling the conspiracy theorists into this area and to pacify them and to make them seem just tell them Patriots in control. That's an old intelligence operation that's been running for hundreds of years. Actually tell you a lot of what they're doing, put enough crazy in there that the normies don't follow it, and then just pacify probably the people who are most likely to revolt if they're going to revolt. You know, as long as you have fat homeless people at home with iPhones, you're probably not going to have a revolution anytime soon. People are too comfortable. But you know, my opinion is that I think this drop could be another version of Operation Trust. They're giving look at all this stuff. Ooh, look, we're doing it. And then, you know, if we ever actually see the light of day, the rest of them, but I don't know how you're going to be able to view them if they're so dark and evil. If you even look at them, are you participating in crime? And that's going to be the hard part to really get this shit out. Who's going to be able to put that out in a way that they don't immediately get arrested and thrown in jail for CP? So I don't know what the answer is.
It's crazy because I do think that anything of significance, like they had some stuff they given us, a lot of the stuff was stuff we knew we've been talking about for a while. And it's kind of crazy you mentioned QAnon because it was like Q drops, right? That's a Q boards or whatever the hell they called that stuff. Twitter didn't have the stuff back in the days. We had to go digging deep to find out this stuff. And it certainly changed my point of view. But I feel like a lot of those operations, when they went to Epstein Island, they were actually, it was the elites looking for stuff on them that they wanted to get out of the way to make sure that they got a hold of so that we never see it. You know, it never sees the light of day. So I don't believe the FBI is really holding on to anything of significance that's going to put the real power, the Oz behind the curtain, going to put those people in jail. Well, that's just my personal opinion.
My opinion is that what you're talking about is exactly why P. Diddy was raided. He had a lot of stuff on a lot of people and they wanted it. And why would the intelligence agency drop anything that they have on people that they have blackmail on? You know, why would you do that? Now you can control them. Now you have everything. Things were taken out of Epstein's house. That was talked about, videos, you know, folders, all that stuff was taken out. Now, Pam Bondi, who I think is a scumbag of the highest order, got really racked about saying, you know, the Dow is over 50,000 and everyone's racking her about that. But I think that was a warning. I think what she was telling them is that the people involved in this are running these companies. If you fucking put this out, you're going to destroy Wall Street.
Yeah.
And there's a woman out there, and I recite her. I have to find the video so I can give her the credit. I'm just not one of these people that remembers everybody's name. It's a fault of my brain. But she was talking about earlier that, you know, the real thing about Epstein isn't politicians because they're disposable. But the real the real power behind the Epstein are all these CEOs of these major corporations.
Yeah.
And if this stuff comes out, that could do huge damage to Wall Street. And I think that's what the 50,000 Dow's over 50,000 was about. Hey man, you want us to put out shit about all these people and it will destroy the economy. That's what I think. Maybe I'm looking too deep, but I trust my instincts. It's gotten me where I am, and that's my feeling. Like, dude, we put these out. Everyone, I mean, you're already seeing people step down. You got
Prince Andrew now.
Andrew stepping down. I mean, getting arrested. That seems like a shoe drop, but maybe he's disposable at this point. He's no longer a royal. They got rid of his title. So maybe it's like, look at us. Look what we're doing. I believe a lot of this, Alex Rosen on, Twitter is busting a lot of pedophiles on a street level. And I think it's very important. But part of me is like, we're busting low level ones, and all pedophiles are bad pedophiles. Most of these guys are autistic, so deep on the spectrum. I think most of them just don't know how to interact socially. So they're just trying to interact with anybody. And I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, are we really going after any power players? And I'm not, again, saying he's not doing great work. It's just we're not getting any of the guys who are masters of mankind at this point.
So your hunch, what does your hunch say? Is the Epstein story more about Satanism than pedophilia? Is this about just rich men trafficking children or kids, or, Michael Tracy says 16, 17-year-old people, and that's what this is mostly about? Or is this about ball and Satanism?
Well, if you ask me, the J's running the world, the J world order is low-hanging fruit. I really
I'd say
do believe
the Z world order, but that's probably get you less trouble.
Yeah, I mean the Z world, if you want to call it that, I'm fine with that as well. I mean, because that's really who it is. It's our friends who are Jewish are just like anybody else, just trying to feed their family and live a good life. But they're all middle management to me. The Zionists, the communists, the Freemasons, the Jesuit order. Those are all, to me, middle management at the highest level. And this could get weird on the show, but I think it's all Babylon, dude. At the highest level, it's like the old gods want to come out and play, and I was just at Danny Jones's show before I did your show. And, I showed him, if you look at the Greater Israel Project and you look at the map of the Greater Israel Project and the map of ancient Babylon, it's almost the same. Ancient Babylon goes farther up in Iraq. It's northern, but it's pretty much the same place. And that's what they're doing. They have to wear these Abrahamic religions masks to walk amongst us, so we don't fucking lose our mind that people who worship gods that want child sacrifice are the ones in control. But people are waking up to it. So, again, going back to the Epstein files, maybe for Pasta and Sam, we know all this, but to the newbie who is like watching MSNBC and now that Trump's involved is willing to take a look at it, or the other side that's a Trump person is taking a look at the Clintons are involved, it kind of opens people's minds.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, then what would be wrong one there? What's the move? Final question of the show. And thank you for coming on again, Sam.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too. Final question. I really do love you, man. You're a great guy. What's the move moving forward? What do we tell people out there? Because we know people are going to get wrapped up in the next cycle, thinking that voting is going to save them. I can already see the Democrats making their play. One person that's not talked about that stepped down is Tom Pritzker. Tom Pritzker made Gavin Newsom's career. He bankrolled Gavin Newsom's career. Tom Pritzker is one of the big donors for him. We haven't heard anything.
Is that the guy? Is he brother with the Illinois
cousin
governor?
of J.B. Pritzker. Not did I say Pritzker?
No, I don't know how to say his name, but I just wanted to make sure that was
Tom Pritzker.
Yeah, I mean, very dark. There's a part of me, Pasta, like there's different things at play here, and I don't, what we like to do is always act like the elites are in control of everything. So, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're if we believe they're all worshiping dark arts, there's light, and sometimes light's at work. So there's a part of me, dude, that says there's multiple ways of looking at these dumps. There's part of me that thinks this could be the elites as well, trying to get rid of the old guard, because the old guard is no longer producing money. I think that's why they got rid of P. Diddy. P. Diddy was still, cashing checks while he's not putting out any hits anymore or discovering any new artists. Like for a while there, he was like, he made the most money out of any hip hop star without putting out an album for 10 years. They don't like that. And that's why we see all these rock stars forever touring when they're 90, because either you're making money or they don't want anything to do with you. So part of me is like, part of this dump could be them wanting to get rid of the old guard that's no longer in control. The Clinton brand is dead. They're not running shit. The Obamas kneecapped them. Biden's didn't want to work with them, in my humble opinion. So that could be at work as well. So when you bring up this Pritzker guy, they could be ready to get rid of everybody. It's like, okay, you've served your purpose and you're no longer producing anymore. Time to bring in new young talent that will be with them for a couple decades. So I think that's at work as well. I mean, again, Pasta's like, I'm not into any of these politicians. I think they're all scumbags. I think people who actually want to help humanity work on a street level. I've never met a liberal in my life who ever, and that would include progressives. I think progressives tend to be a little farther to the left than the liberals. That's just my opinion. But I've never met one that wants to run for public office. They always want to help on a street level. So these people that run for public office from the left, I think, and the right, dude. I mean, like, I'm not absolving the right in any way. They're just as bad. I just think their intentions of getting in could be a little different in terms of how it's presented. But they don't want to. They don't care about humanity. I mean, like, you got people protesting in Minneapolis on a Telegram thread or whatever the app was, with the guy who's been accused of billions of dollars of tax fraud. We keep wanting to raise our taxes so they can steal more money. That's just my opinion. It's crazy to me. And, things are coming out about Karen Bass now, the 15-minute cities. California wants a 9-cent tax on their mileage. I mean, that's enforced in the 15-minute cities, so you don't leave your fucking house. So that's my opinion on any of these people. I think there's a time for them to expire. We may have gotten past that, and they're looking for new blood. I mean, look at George Soros's kid. He's such a freaking R-word. I don't know if you can say that on your show, but he's such an idiot, right? They had to bring in Huma Abedin to basically be his handler, and he's just like the next generation of rich kids cosplaying fucking, intelligent people. And he's a great example of that. Like, now he's running a lot of stuff. His father's starting to step to the background. So I see this move to bring in new blood. That's what I think a lot of it's about.
Well, what else is expired is our time. Sam Tripoli, thank you so much for joining the show. We appreciate it. Good luck out there on the road. Good luck with your new show. Let everybody know where they can find your work.
SamTripoli.com or Sam Tripoli, Tripoli, on any major social media. That's where I am. I tweet way too much. I got an addiction. But I have like 7 podcasts. And then I was talking to Pasta before. My new project is called Word War Debate. It is the UFC of debating. We caught fire in a bottle on the first one. The next one is tentatively scheduled for April 11th. We're doing all the hot topics, having all the hot debates of your favorite influencers, social media. Who was the
first one, by the way?
The big one was Anna Kasparian versus Pearl. That blew up, dude.
Yeah. I don't think Pearl was ready to debate with Anna. That was
Anna's a shark. So she's been bringing that energy for a very long time.
If you want somebody to debate her from the left, grab my partner Fiorella Isabel, and we'll show you how an orca like Fiorella destroys the shark. I'll tell you, that would be a good debate.
We're down for everybody, dude.
Yeah,
The goal
definitely.
is.
I'd love to.
You know,
I don't know if Fiorella would really. I just kind of threw her name out there. She'll probably yell at me later, but I'd like to see that. So,
let's set it up, dude. We make the best fights, dude.
definitely, my man. Well, you might make the best fights, but you're one of the greatest guys in this business, man. Thanks again for joining us over here. We'll see you soon.
Anytime, buddy. I love you. Thanks for having me.
Love you too, guys. Guys, all the ways to help the show are down below. You can take a look at it, click on it. Remember, we do have a Give, Send, Go. We are showing right now. We are working on this. We are showing. Here we go. Like I'm brand new to this. Guys, if you want to help out, go to our Give, Send, Go right there. There it is. Do I even have it on? Ah, my Lord. Give, Send, Go. You can go to givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. That's givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. Help out Fiorella and I. We are going all over the place. Peru, Brazil, Colombia. We're going to cover some elections, talk to some people. And we will also hit the ground running out here in America for all the stories that you want us to cover. Thanks again. I am Pasta, and we'll see you later.